the stoic protector of the festering banquet. He bears decades of dried sea air on his tattered shroud. His charge was to protect the fortress that became the festering banquet. When and how the fortress became a cursed place of shambling monsters remain a mystery. Hey all and every, and welcome to the Eleventy-Three. This will be the debut of my somewhat Let's Play channel. I plan to do a lot of things, but that is then, this is now. Now we are playing Sodden Sanctuary. Okay, but what is Sodden Sanctuary? Sodden Sanctuary is honestly one of my favorite games of all time, though barely. It has a couple minor problems, a couple big problems, this and that, and I just wanted to try my best to show the best this game has to offer. And to do that, this is going to be something of a completionist walkthrough. I'll tell you now that I most likely will not be getting every single item in this game, but just the important items and key items. This walkthrough will also be a guide on how to get the Platinum Trophy. It's not that difficult compared to other ludicrously attained Platinum Trophies, but I'm like, hey, why not? Anyway, I'll have tips, tricks, and hints along the way if you, for whatever reason, decide to play alongside me, and this game is very obscure about all of its information, and it really deters many people away from the game. Scott Studios, the creators of this game, just a two-man, air quotations, development team, tried to make a 2D representation of the Dark Souls series, and I think they did a really good job in implementing that type of gameplay into a 2D plane. But I feel that they do it a little too much or go overboard with it, because not even Dark Souls is obscure about the gameplay mechanics. It can't be, because, well, that's its whole game. And without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, why did I start off with the chef class? There are two reasons for that. The first reason, and the bigger reason, is because the chef, like the pauper, doesn't have starting skills. Starting skills are basically, you know, the skill that that particular class starts off with, no duh. And later on in the game, it's not that big of a deal. It's just two skills that you're unable to control. But you know, it's min-maxing, what have you. And the second reason is because I wanted to start off with the iron pot. The reason for that is because a long time ago, I wanted to do a playthrough of Sodden Sanctuary, like now. But the problem with that walkthrough was that I was moving fairly quickly through the starting areas, and I couldn't really talk that long without me just changing the subject. In terms of gameplay, I mean. And I didn't want to, well, play badly, because that would be ungenuine. And, well, yeah, that's basically it. Surprisingly, I looked up on the wiki for Sodden Sanctuary. The iron pot is one of the better late game weapons, and I'll just be quiet for a second.
Well, hello there. You're just a fleshy bits of flotsam washed ashore with the rest of us, You want shelter, you want sanctuary. But what is a sanctuary without faith? There's an empty sanctuary at the beach. You can claim it for your creed. Tell me, do you keep the new gods? Most men follow these deities, the king, the knight, and the judge. The king lends wisdom to men who lead, the knight protects warriors in combat, and the judge guides those who maintain order. Are you a follower of the three then? You're a follower of the three, as I suspected. Here's a candelabra of the three, icon of your creed. You survived the shipwreck, didn't you? This island is full of shipwrecked sailors like you. I stand here on the beach, I see men drown, I see men survive, but I never see rescue. Perhaps this island is cursed, but weren't you already thinking that? But have I seen a princess? Perhaps, perhaps. Why is a princess so important? Living or dead, we're all the same flesh. Maybe I'm your princess, adorned in the skin of a decrepit old man. Well, go find your princess. You know what they say. A quest goes a long way to keeping the madness at bay. Sanctuary is simple, but salvation is not.
And just like that, we should have our first trophy. And I forget the name of this NPC, so for now we'll just call him the old man. And he talked about sanctuaries and that it was just up the beach, and there we got the sanctuary key. And actually I'll just be quiet for like a couple of seconds. And there you go. Sanctuaries are basically bonfires from the Dark Souls series, if you've played that type of game before. And it's basically where you go to level up and to do certain things like upgrade equipment if you have certain NPCs in there, and I'll talk about that in a later episode, but here you can see the skill tree, the thing I mentioned earlier. When you first see this, you're either going to be very excited or very intimidated by it. Excited being, oh my gosh, I can do all this and have all this customization, I'll probably have +5 walking speed, and no, it's not that bad, it's not that good, it's just a glorified way to level up your stats. And to simplify things, if you want to use prayers or faith type skills or spells, then that's on the bottom right. If you want to be a sorcerer, sorceress, whatever, and use magic, that's on the bottom left. Everything else is basically melee, like your swords, pole axes, maces, and whips. They have that in this game. They're actually alright, I guess. And unlike Dark Souls, where you need a certain amount of strength or a certain amount of dexterity to use a certain weapon, in this game is skill classes. You level up sword class 1, mace class 1, blah blah blah, and it goes on all the way up to level 5. And that's a good trade-off. I think it's a good, unique way to balance the game. Although I don't think they did it completely right, or I don't feel that the gameplay correlates to it, but it's nice. What I like mostly about it is that when you do level up those class skills, you also boost a certain stat that relates to it. Like if you boost, say, swords or maces, you get strength, and the stat increase equals the skill class that you put up. So if you put up class 3 swords, then you get 3 strength. And it's different for certain weapon types, like whips and daggers, I believe, give you stamina, while things like heavy armor and light armor increases your endurance, and that basically tells you how much equipment weight you can have at a certain point, and that determines if you light roll, medium roll, heavy roll, and there's a lot of mechanics. If you're not just an everyday gamer, that there's a lot to talk about, or some things to get confused over, but it's really simple. It's nothing to write home about. And we've entered the Festering Banquet, this small little starting area. An interesting lore bit about these enemies: they're drowned soldiers and drowned archers. Like the old man said earlier in the game, he's seen many men drown, many men survive, yet they all stay here. And there's this thing, I don't know exactly what to call it, in the menu called the bestiary. I believe it's pronounced bestiary. And it's basically a dictionary on the enemies that you've either encountered or defeated. I believe it's encountered. And yeah, it talks about how they're mindless and how, well, they just wander around. And the fact that they're called drowned soldiers, it kind of almost, in a way, shows a foreshadowing of yourself. And that's something that it does try, well, not try, but that's something that it does incorporate from Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, you were the chosen undead, and every time you die, you would slowly lose a part of yourself. And you can see the inspiration, but I don't want people to think that Salt and Sanctuary is just 2D Dark Souls. Salt and Sanctuary is Salt and Sanctuary. It takes the mechanics from Dark Souls and, like I said earlier, places it correctly in a 2D plane. However, those problems we'll be going over a lot. And there I just picked up a ring, the Bandaged Ring. It reduced wounding. What is wounding? Huh, you probably wouldn't know that if you played this game for the first time. There's two mechanics in this game, wounding and fatigue. Basically, whenever you get hit, your maximum HP is lowered. And every time you do an action, your maximum stamina is lowered. But it's not permanently, and the defects are very minuscule, so don't worry about it. It resets every time you rest at a sanctuary. Hey, look at Sanctuary, we got our stuff back, woohoo! These are mini sanctuaries, in lack of a better term. They're not big sanctuaries, also in lack of a better term, but they do get the job done. Most of the time, the standard sanctuaries, the one that you'll usually be going to, are often better. But sometimes, particularly in co-op, yes, this game does have co-op, yes, it is fun, because couch co-op is always fun. Particularly in co-op, they are better, just because of specific reasons, and again, I'll go over that later. And, spoiler alert, we're about to go to a boss. And one of my favorite bosses of this game. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sodden Knight. Gameplay-wise, I love this boss. Story-wise, he's kinda garbage. But lucky for us and him, the gameplay part is more important. This boss actually has a very good combo game. He may seem simple at first, but the moment his eyes start going blue is when things get serious. But for now, he's just very simple. He has this leaping attack and, you know, standard, I'm gonna attack you, and all that goodness. With an electric ground pound, and there you go. You see, just before he just did the lightning strike, but now he left afterwards, and he's gonna do that continually throughout the rest of the fight. It's better to dodge that attack closer to him than away from him, because that attack is designed for you to go away and for him to punish you. And so you go towards him and go under him, and that's a lot better. And now, whenever he does the lightning strike or does the leaping attack, he's gonna follow it up. And he gets tricky. He really does get tricky the more the lower his health is. And the key to this fight is just knowing the difference between certain attacks, which attacks he's going to use, and yada yada yada, but there you go. Do not let the footage here make you believe that he's an easy boss. He is not. Most of the time when I leave this game for at least a week and I end up fighting him, it's usually 3 times. It's usually 3 times, sometimes 5, who knows. But moving on, actually staying on. What I do like about this boss is that he's legitimately difficult, as I said. If let's say a boss like the Unspeakable Deep, that monster at the beginning of the game, let's say we actually had to defeat him and he was the legitimate first boss. See, that would be a problem because that boss is difficult in the wrong way. In the right way because of how they implement it, but that's neither here nor there. What I like about the Sodden Knight is that he's basically a skill check. He's to make sure that you understand the basic mechanics of the game, and that's nice going forward. I feel like most bosses, well, bosses of this type of game should be that way. And, well, yeah, and here, this is the end of the episode, because I don't want it to be long, especially because I'm a newer YouTuber, and I decided to keep it around 15 to 20 minutes. I might go over a couple of times. I doubt I'll go under that margin, but for now, I'll see you guys around next time on the Eleventy-Three. Peace out.
The others have begun to kneel. Will it join them? It will struggle then, and it will bleed, and it will fall. And one day when it finds itself beaten and broken, grasping for air, choking on its own blood and tears, that will be the day that it kneels. And I shall consume it.